Miyamoto Musashi, or Shinben Musashi no Kami Fujiwara no Genshin, was born in 1584, year of the monkey. He was born to a samurai family in Miyamoto Village, I wonder where they got the name from, and was taught the art of the sword, Kenjutsu, by his father from a young age. He showed great promise. This is lucky for us because we get cool samurai stories, but unfortunate for other swordsmen of his time. Musashi had some daddy issues though, and ended up living with his monk uncle Doran. Doran, being a Zen Buddhist monk, rather unsurprisingly taught Musashi Zen Buddhism, along with reading and writing. With a desire to become the best swordsman in Nippon, most likely in addition to some hormones and the unconscious need to compensate for his daddy issues, Musashi left his uncle in his late teens and set out to perfect his Kenjutsu. Eventually, he drifted to Kyoto and decided to test his rad katana skills against the poor souls of the Yoshioka school of swordsmanship. He whooped their leader, which upset the next leader, so Musashi whooped him too, which in turn upset the 12-year-old leader to follow him, who assembled a bunch of angry guys with weapons to help him beat up Musashi. Legend has it that Musashi wasn't having that, so he ambushed the troops and killed the 12-year-old, making the angry guys with weapons even more angry. Desperate to defend himself from said angry guys, Musashi had to draw a second sword, which supposedly led to him developing his dual sword fighting technique, Niten Ichi. Following this legendary conflict, Musashi continued being a cool sword guy, leading to him defeating a cool spear guy named Ine and squaring off against other cool sword guy Sasaki Kojiro. This duel between cool sword guys is Musashi's most well-known duel, and possibly the most famous duel in Japanese history. You see, Sasaki wasn't just any cool guy with a sword, he was a really cool guy with a really cool sword. A very long two-handed sword called a nodachi. The day was April 13th, 1612, when these two coolest of cool sword guys decided to face off. The duel was scheduled to happen early in the morning, but Musashi had other plans. For hours, Sasaki and the official witnesses waited for his arrival, beginning to suspect he had fled in fear of Sasaki's wicked sword moves. Musashi had not fled though, but rather had planned a late arrival to try to disturb his opponent. Musashi was transported to the island the duel was set to take place on by a local fisherman. He used the time spent traveling to construct a wooden sword to be used in the battle. When Musashi had finally arrived, Sasaki was very irritated and tossed his scabbard to the ground in anger. Musashi legendarily responded to this by saying, "If you have no more use for your sheath, you are already dead." His words proved to be true. The duel ended with Musashi breaking Sasaki's ribs, which punctured his lungs. The slaughtering of this fellow cool sword guy led to an epiphany in Musashi, causing him to realize the tragedy of his rival's death and leading to him swearing off lethal duels. He then began to focus more on reflection and perfecting his technique. He also painted somewhat frequently, making mostly self-portraits and landscapes. His life ended in 1645, having just completed a great treatise on Kenjutsu by the name of Gorin no Sho, or the Book of the Five Rings. One familiar with Japanese pop culture does not have to strain themselves to see how influential his life was. Anime, manga, and movies are littered with references to him and his persona, with the trope of the reflective swordsman out to become the greatest in the world still popping up with unending frequency.